Hi, I'm Jim Raffle. Welcome to this week's episode of the Jim and Shelby Show, All Things Print Podcast. I'm joined by...
I'm Shelby Sapusik. How are you today, Jim? Happy 2025.
I know. Look, I turned over a new leaf in 2025. I rearranged my office.
Wow, do you even know what that cliche means? Turning over a new leaf and
No,
are you like, and also doesn't everybody clean their office space at the beginning of the new year?
maybe.
Okay. It looks nice. No, honestly though, I mean you don't have a blurred background anymore, so that's cool.
There's still more. There's a little more to do, but um,
No, it looks nice, honestly.
yeah, I would say half those books up there were probably gifts from you over,
That's very possible.
over here.
Books, yeah, that's a common gift that I give. You're right.
I, I know. I got two of them up there from you from this past Christmas. So thank you.
That's true. That's true.
Yes. So thank you. They're already up there. So what we're going to do today is something a little different, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, we're just going to talk about, we were actually guests on a different podcast,
Mhm.
and we were given permission to kind of use that for ours too, so we could kind of cross promote. We were on a new podcast called Color Matters, and it is being produced by our friend and colleague Clark Omholt of the TruHu application, which is a monitor calibration app that we've been demoing it in a lot of our online and in-person workshops lately.
And I can tell you right now that the production quality of Clark's podcast is slightly above ours.
Yeah, he has
He is
a
a
dedicated
professor.
producer, I believe, right?
He
So,
does. He does.
which, hey,
Puts a little, I'm just putting a little pressure on you, Jake. No,
no, no. Jake does a fantastic job. Don't,
no,
no.
I
Or
think
you know what? If you say things like that, you're going to end up editing these. So be careful.
that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about, as you mentioned, it's 2025. Welcome to a new
Yes,
year. We're starting off the new year. Let's see. Our first thing we'll be doing is January 22nd, right? We're
that's
doing
correct.
we're doing confident color training at Momaki in Los Angeles, which
Yep.
is the day before the impression show in Long Beach. So if you
Right.
happen to be headed out there for the impression show and you want to get a 1 day, um, 10,000 foot view of color, our confident color class, that's exactly what it's intended for. And Momaki has graciously hosting it. So we'll have equipment there, a great training facility. That's the first place we held it a year ago. So it's kind of come full circle. It's kind of neat.
Oh, I guess it was. You're right. Yep.
Mhm. Yep. And as crazy as it sounds, we're not going to stick around for the impression show. We've got other things going on. Um, Pending some personal issues, I will be at the West Coast Art and Frame Show, which is immediately after the Los Angeles event. I'll fly right to Las Vegas. The West Coast Art and Frames will be that Saturday, which I guess would be maybe the 25th and 26th. I'm only there on the 25th. I have to get back in town on the 26th because starting, I think, on the 27th, and I'm not looking at a calendar, I will be doing online live G7 Plus training. So if you want to sign up for G7 Plus training with me as the instructor, there's a whole bunch of classes you can take. But if you want to have me as an instructor, that's one of, I think, 4 or 5 opportunities you'll have next year. It's definitely the first one. And it's it's less than a month away. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think technically it's G7 plus expert training.
Thank you.
Just,
Shelby does a great job keeping all of these events up to date on our events calendar on colorcasters.com. So if you go to colorcasters.com, click on the events tab, you're going to find all of these events. Some of the next ones I mentioned may or may not be there yet. I don't know how far out she's gone. Let's see. April is Sign Expo in Las Vegas, correct? I think Mandalay,
yes.
yep, Mandalay Bay this year. That's later in April, the 22nd, I think, is when we fly out, somewhere around and then.
Mhm.
And then let's see, we will do the next one I know of for sure is UV Energized in September, right?
That's correct. And that is, I don't know the dates exactly, but it's always the week of Labor Day. It starts, you know, the education starts that Tuesday, and I believe it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
It does. That's exactly right. And then Fortunately, Print and United is not the week after UV Energized this
Not
year.
this year, right? We get a little bit of a break, and we're back in Orlando. I think it's the third week of October.
Fabulous Orlando, my favorite place for a trade show.
Boy, no sarcasm there. One thing you did, and we just put this on the calendar so I can understand why you might miss it. I don't even have it on our events page yet. I don't even think we have it as a product in our store yet, but we are going to be holding an online Confident Color on February 21st.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that earlier
Like,
this week, or maybe later last week.
yeah, yeah. I'm not really sure. It was during the holidays,
It
so
was definitely during the
I
holidays.
haven't quite gotten that up yet, but I will very soon.
Well, I guess I should remind people there's always recordings of some of our past trainings available for purchase online. We've decided to keep those up and available if people want to take advantage of that. So,
Mhm.
uh, like right now, I think we've got a bundle up there for both the AI class and the Confident Color, and it's a little bit of, it's not inexpensive, but I think it's a pretty good deal for what you get. So take a look at that. All right. Well, I think with that, we should jump into the podcast episode with Clark.
Jim and Shelby, welcome to the Color Matters podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe we can start by just hearing a little bit more about your background. You guys run the Colorcasters, and can you tell me how Colorcasters came to be?
Ladies first.
Oh, wow. Been put on the spot already. Um, I started working with Jim, who owned a technology company for color verification called Color Metrics. I guess that kind of exists in some way, although we don't operate under that name anymore. But it was very much a software company, really. And we started realizing as we were talking to clients that there was a need for more education and training in the print industry. And so about 8 years ago, we developed Colorcasters to be that. So now we do consulting, but we have a large training and education component to it.
I think that's a pretty good description. Yeah.
Well done, Shelby. So my understanding, Shelby, is you're kind of heading up the training side of things. Can you tell me a little bit about your training methodology and where the biggest challenges and opportunities exist?
I think getting people to understand that there are things that they don't know that they don't know. When we are working with our clients in the consulting world, there will be things that for us is this is everyday knowledge, and we'll show them something in a piece of software or something about basic color theory, and you see a light bulb go off, and like, wow, I had no idea that was even a thing, and I want to learn more. And so I like to tease people with my social media. Did you know this about this? And have you thought about how you can get spot color optimization out of your RIP, or things that they didn't even know was a solution for them, or a possible solution to get them to come to training. And once we get people in the door, we usually have some really great positive feedback.
And just your training, what does it look like? Is it like you might go and provide training for a specific company, or is it more you say, hey, we're doing a Colorcasters training in Chicago on this day, and people from a variety of companies come? Or what's the typical situation look like?
Well, I don't know
So,
if there's a typical situation. I think we do a lot of things. We do online webinars. I think our own podcast, The Jim and Shelby Show, has educational components to it. We do in-person training, and then when we do consulting, a lot of the times education is a huge part of it. People want to learn, and we're finding that more and more in the industry. When we first started, I felt like there was about 50-50 people would want us to come in and fix their problems, but they didn't really want to know how we were doing it. Now I find that more people want to shadow us. They want to learn so that when we walk out the door at the end of our on-site visit, they can continue the work or keep up on the verification and calibration, and just send us, questions here and there, and not have to have us come back again necessarily.
I, I think it's fair to say that really there's there's three components to the training we do. Um, One would be, an online option, which is typically scheduled at a specific time. The second would be an in-person scheduled at a specific time, right? So it would be something that anybody who wants to can sign up for. And then I think the third is, as you mentioned, this option where we go on site and we do the training. It's typically one of our um, prepared training classes, but we present it to a limited audience within a given company.
Got it. And if I heard Shelby correctly, it might be like you might do a multi-day on-site engagement, and there might be some working with RIPS and doing color management type stuff, and then maybe there's a training component that's tied in with the technical work. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I mean, a lot of times people will ask if we can, if we think, boy, we're going to need 2 or 3 days with your printers to profile them and work through the issues that you're having. Sometimes they'll ask us if they can add a day onto that 2 or 3 day visit so that we can go through one of our workshops for their employees. So very much so that does happen.
What are some titles of workshops that you might give? Do you have any memorized?
Well, right now our one that we're doing is called Confident Color, and we've offered that as both a webinar. We've also been doing on site through Mamaki mostly right now, but I think we're looking to spread that out, and we can tailor it. It's our material, it's our original material, and we can tailor it to specific companies as far as like their RIPs and other software they might be using.
Well,
Gotcha. So that would cover like color theory and maybe some of your preferred color settings in Adobe and things of that nature.
yes, and making profiles. But the other one that Shelby, I don't think covered yet, unless I missed it, is we are also authorized by Print United to teach the Color Management Professional Fundamentals course. So that's a course that people can take online in the iLearning Plus environment, or they can hire us to do it live and in person. And when we do it live and in person, we add essentially a second day. Well, it's like about 5.5 or 6 hours of online training. We add a second day on top of that, which is building profiles, calibrating monitors, and things of that nature by demonstration. And if people want to get involved and do like a sort of a hands-on, they can come up front and get involved as well. So.
Okay. Maybe that's a good transition to a question I have, which is, what does a typical engagement in-person engagement look like for y'all?
Consulting?
Oh, there's not.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, there's never typical.
I'm just going to say.
But
No.
Representative? I don't know what the word
yeah,
would be.
that's a better word. So, what's happening a lot currently is a lot of 2 day minimum. We basically have a 2 day minimum. And so I feel like we're getting involved in a lot of 2 day minimums. And I think that's because people have very specific color problems that are causing pain in their operations, right? And they need to fix it. And so it's almost a break fix mentality. They expect you to come in, and obviously we don't turn wrenches and fix printers. That's not our business. But it's the same mentality. It's like we have this thing that is broken, come in and fix it. And I just experienced it in the last 2 days of this week, where I came in and literally they just wanted me make this printer print the right colors. That was essentially the mandate, and I knew it was going to be more than that. It always is, but I built a profile and then figured out a few other things. They didn't have the Pantone replacements turned on in their RIP. They weren't saving files using PDFX out of their design environment. There's always certain things that almost always occur. And when you get done, they're always like, "Oh, we thought it was just the printer." And it's like, no, actually, the printer was actually fine. Everything else was broken or just not set up correctly. The other thing that ends up happening, and that's typically just me going in by myself. Then we have the bigger engagements where it's typically 3 to 5 days. It's Shelby and I working together. It's a company that realizes they need to make a significant commitment to improving their color reproduction and their entire color workflow. And sometimes that's a startup, which we just did in Las Vegas, where it's an existing company opening a brand new location, and they dropped in 5 brand new printers, and everything was new. We helped install the RIP. We helped get the RIP up and running. We built profiles for all 5 printers, and that took that was done over a 3 to 5 day period. I can't remember exactly what that one was because it ended up getting split up because they weren't quite ready for us, which happens. But yeah, I mean, it can be anything from that 2 day minimum to 3 to 5 days. We had a client where it ended up being 15 days spread over a year, and they had, oh my gosh, well, we ended up with I think 3 or 4 Caldera RIP workstations, and each one of those had 3 or 4 or 5 printers attached to it, and they changed the way they do everything related to color in that company over the course of a year, and they made the full commitment up front. They knew what they were getting into, so it's the whole spectrum.
I'm gathering that I asked what a representative engagement would look like, and it sounds like a couple takeaways is that you're probably working representatively on a inkjet printer or family of inkjet printers, working with a RIP, and building profiles. Those seem to be 3 things that are common for your engagements. Is that about right? And can you maybe mention some of the typical brands of inkjets you're working with, and what kind of RIPs you're working with, that you're working with most frequently?
Yep. And so while that's representative, we also, as a G7 expert, I also do offset press calibrations,
Okay.
G7 calibrations, right? And I do proofing calibrations for those types of clients. But that's a smaller part of our business. You're correct. In the representative section, you're correct. It's inkjet devices, everything from, like your 54 and 60-inch printers, uh, Muto, Momaki, HP, Canon. Who did I miss? um,
Right.
and that's in the smaller, let's call them the sign shop environments, right? And that's going to be almost always your Onyx RIP or the Momaki Rasterlink RIP. Um, there's some Wasatch we get involved in. EFI, we obviously work with EFI because as we go up in size, we work on some very, very large equipment. We work on Durst equipment, which is all very big, and Durst's subsidiary Vanguard, those types of printers, some CET printers we see out in the field, the EFIs and the Vutex, which is all pretty much one. I know I'm missing some major brands, but the other RIPs are, I've already mentioned Caldera. So we
Yeah.
work with all the major RIPs, Ergosoft. Um, I've worked with all of them over the years.
So I think 3 of the RIP brands that I think I heard you mention that you work with frequently are Caldera, Onyx, and Fiery, previously known as EFI. Uh,
Mhm.
can you maybe expand a bit upon the strengths of each of those, and where? I mean, you probably just take whatever the customers
Yeah. We
has, but
we
if
like
you sometimes they probably ask you for recommendations. So when would you recommend one versus the other?
we like to say that we are RIP and printer agnostic. I mean, we we will do our best to work with whatever RIPs they have. We get asked the question a lot. What's your favorite RIP? And honestly, they have their different advantages, and they have their different
That's
features.
exactly what I'm
You know?
asking.
Yeah.
What are the advantages of some, or maybe disadvantages as well? I'm sure people are curious, and you guys are experts, so I'm sure you have insight that a typical person doesn't have.
So when it comes to the color engine, I think that um, Fiery Fiery XF probably has a pretty significant edge over both Caldera and Onyx, and neither one of them would want to hear me say that, but I think it's the truth. And
That's why we're doing this thing.
yeah, I mean, and that's what I would tell customers. I think there's issues with Fiery depending on what printers you're using and what the rest of your workflow is. But I also feel that well, they were addressing some of those. It'll be interesting to see what happens with their acquisition by Epson if
Yeah.
that changes their support.
So you say Fiery has a kind of maybe a better color engine, but it has issues. Can you expand upon what issues you're referring to?
Well, so there are areas that are really outside of color, and they would be workflow issues with, um, connection to cutters and tiling and things like that that would happen. My understanding is that a lot of that has been addressed, but I'm trusting my clients because even though I'm certified in the RIP and I know how all of that works, it's not something people hire me for. They don't bring me in to say, hey, make this work with my laser cutter or my other devices, right? And so when I say that, it's based upon what my clients are telling me, not firsthand experience. Um, Now, if we move over to Caldera, Caldera is phenomenal. The number of printers that they support, how well they support them, their technical support, which also EFI or Fiery has great technical support or has up to this point. But the 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 depth of the devices that Caldera supports is really amazing to me. And if you're a large enterprise, they've got some workflow tools that are built in and some additional ones that you can pay extra for. Um, I love the fact that it does in fact run on the Mac platform. Some people don't like that. I think it's actually a plus. Um, while it's
So
not
it doesn't run under Windows. You have to have a Mac to run Caldera.
right, there are certain utilities that will run on a Windows machine, but the actual RIP itself today runs on a Mac or a Linux machine.
Yeah, that's very
Um,
unusual.
yeah, it is, but it's good for a big enterprise. Unlike Fiery XF will work with Command Workstation, which is a really powerful, true client server. Um, you can do similar things with Caldera that are in some ways more powerful, but not as transparent and as easy to configure. But you can have multiple workstations in a facility all sharing one license that can print to any of the printers. It's a little trickier to configure. But again, the use of hot folders and the automation associated with hot folders is pretty powerful stuff. And then when you get to Onyx, Onyx is just easy. I mean, if you're a smaller sign shop or even a bigger shop that just wants easy and what you're producing is relatively straightforward product, let's just put it that way. Onyx is probably the way to go just because of the simplicity and how easy it is to train people. It's got a decent color management engine. It's relative, it's a wizard driven product when it comes to creating profiles. I can tell you creating profiles on all three of them, I can get really nice G7 compliant profiles out of all of them without any creation of curves, which to me is a big plus in the inkjet world. And so, yeah, I mean that's
You brought up tech support a minute ago. My memory is that Caldera is based in France, but you're able to get good tech support here in the U.S.
yeah, their tech support team is actually global, and it's all your first line of defense is an email. And they typically, at least in my experience, they typically respond to my emails within a couple hours. Um, so unlike Fiery, where you can pick up the phone and you can get a technician, it might take a half hour of waiting, but you can get a technician during business hours. Um,
Yeah.
it doesn't have that feature, but I find that the Caldera behind the firewall tech support site, the help site, which basically just have to have a license and a login. The depth of answers that you can find there is pretty amazing. I mean, I can almost always find the answer, and sometimes I'll put in a support ticket and I'll keep digging while I'm waiting for them to reply, and I'll find the answer and they'll reply with like literally a link to the ticket to the article that I've already found. Just took me a little
Yeah.
while.
Uh, in my experience, when I have a tech support issue, it usually crops up around 3 p.m., right? It doesn't usually
Okay.
happen at 9 a.m. And
Mhm.
it's really nice to have, and I'm on the West Coast, and so it's really nice to have someone who can answer the phone at 3 p.m., which is kind of, I haven't worked with Caldera, but that is true of my experience with both Onyx and Fiery, that you can get them in the afternoon and get someone live. And, in my experience, getting someone live always has an advantage. I mean, what you're saying about the online help communities is really useful as well. But getting
Mhm.
someone live always has an advantage as well.
I agree.
So another question for you: do you have a favorite color tool that you can say, "Oh, this is when I walk out in the world, this is the one that I really rely on the most.
Shelby.
Favorite color tool. I mean, honestly, I really love the program ColorThink. When we are doing profiling and we're trying to look for a certain color and we're trying to explain to people that it might be out of the printer's gamut or just comparing profiles. I used to be a graphic designer in the journalism industry, so being able to visualize these profiles visually rather than mathematically really gets my brain working. So.
Yeah, that's a great educational tool. Jim, now she stole color thing. What do you got?
Well, so if you'd have asked me this question maybe a month or two ago, I probably would have just said, one of the Nix spectrophotometers, the handheld Bluetooth devices. But I've since discovered, well, I knew about it, but I've since, when I say discovered, I've become a user of the ColorLogic Color Ant program and some of their other products, but Color Ant in particular. If you're a true color geek and you haven't yet discovered Color Ant and aren't using Color Ant, um, I, I highly recommend it. I mean, the ability to manipulate data you've already measured, profiles you've already created, to smooth the data, to throw out outliers and reprofile is really pretty cool. They've
I'm
thought
not
of,
familiar with that. I'll have to check it out.
yeah, it's Color Logic, and there's Color Ant and then there's Copra. Copra is to build the profiles. And if you buy Copra or even the smallest license, you get a full license of Colorant. So it's kind of the way to go. I prefer it to my old. I was an I1 profiler guy from the beginning, and I I'm not saying I won't use I1 profiler, but there's some things you definitely get in Colorant and Copra that you don't get there. One of them is just I'm not saying you can average in I1 Profiler, but some of the smoothing and then the ability to build. One of the things I've never been able to do in I1 Profiler is build native CMY profiles, which are not that uncommon. There are some applications of CMY, and we actually do a lot of RGB, which you can do in I1 Profiler, but I feel like I'm getting better results in those two areas in particular with Copra. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about monitor calibration for a quick sec. What's your assessment on what's the world of monitor calibration look like? What are the tools you like?
Well, I think Shelby should, tell stories about how she used to do it.
I mean, it, I I've always been using I1 Profiler along with an X-Rite spectrophotometer to do it, and I mean I that's you're talking 30 minutes per monitor if you want to do it with a large patch size chart. And I've gone to client sites and done 13, 14, 15 monitors, and it takes me all day. Um, I mean, and I don't know if I don't think it's a bad program or a bad process. I think it works. I get good results. But recently, as you know, Clark, we've been introduced to using TruHu. And that, especially with my graphic design world, that tool is phenomenal for people who don't necessarily need or want to invest in a $1,000, $1,200 instrument to do monitor calibration, or go through half hour of the process. Right? I mean, the TruHu is an app, and you can use it right on your phone, and I think you can use it on Android now, right? You have added that, not yet?
No, appreciate the kind words about TrueU, but we're not there with Android
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
So
I know
it's
you
just,
have it in
just
the
for the
works.
iPhone. Yeah, it is in the works.
Right. But anyway, we've been showing that in our classes this year, and it's gone over very well. They really
And
have.
did you notice that the latest version of i1 Profiler no longer supports the i1 display?
I did.
I
Yeah,
didn't notice that, but
yeah, that's a little bit of a gotcha. You got to go get the calibrate
that doesn't surprise
software.
me. Yeah, that
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me.
So
So my observations on that are again similar to Shelby's. I always used I1 Profiler and my I1 device, and it was great. But I just the fact is, it's like Shelby said, it's a half hour, and plus I got to find it. I got to get the cables. Like it's a production. Um, And then I helped a client earlier this year who had bought three brand new EZO. I know both pronunciations are correct. The ones with the little pop down calibrator. And so if you're in that price, if you're in that price performance market, which is a lot of money, that's a great way to do it because I set those up and it just 3 o'clock in the morning, it turns the monitor on, warms it up for 15, 20 minutes, does the calibration, and away it goes, right? And so that's cool. But again, not inexpensive, not inexpensive at all. I have no idea what those monitors even cost. I'm guessing $2,000 a piece, probably.
Yeah, yeah, $2,500 for the 27 inch, I would say.
And so that's out of reach for most people. And so what I've been doing, and I'm looking at, and again, we're really not plugging TruHu, but I'm looking at two monitors right here that were calibrated using TruHu, and it's good enough for me. Um, Now, am I doing regular color corrections and things of that nature? No, I'm not, but I think it would still be good enough for me because A, I do it, and B, if I don't like the way my color looks when I'm sitting in a hotel room and I'm doing something color critical, I can recalibrate the monitor on the spot for my current ambient conditions and all of that. And it takes, I don't know, you've probably timed it, Clark, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, something like that, I'm guessing. Not even?
About a minute. About a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Uh,
so that's the thing is it's something I actually do. Everyone I've shown it to, and we do show it to a fair number of people, they agree. It's like this is something we can put in the hands of our remote workers too, and we'll know that at least they're doing it
well,
because it's so
I,
easy.
I appreciate the kind words about TrueView. I'll pose one final question for you, which is if you could wave your magic wand and have the color tool of your dreams land in your lap, what would it look like?
Wow. Uh, I, I hmm. Honestly, I think it would be something the size and form factor of a Nix device, but also with the ability to do like currently that device does not do emissive measurements, so you can't use it for a monitor even if you wanted to. And it also doesn't currently have, I mean, someone has built a table you can put it into for scanning, but it doesn't have the ability to scan. And even if you could come up with some kind of a ruler for that, where you could hand scan your target instead of having to manually measure the patches, I should probably be more creative than that at the moment, but that's probably that's where I'd be. Yeah.
So you presumably use something like an ISIS or some sort of automated spectra for doing your profiling because it's so efficient. Are you saying like an automated Nix would be a nice option because it would be so much less expensive? Is that kind of the point?
Yeah, and it's easy to carry, right? I mean, if they just came up, even if it didn't have a table, even if it just had a ruler and it was reliable and repeatable, it's like it's a fraction of the size and even an I1, right? And
Yeah.
it's Bluetooth and battery powered, so I can be working some distance from my computer on a big sample that I don't have to cut out, right? So there's a lot of advantages to anything that was always the advantage of the Barbieri SpectroPad that they discontinued is that I could, it was Wi-Fi and I could use it across the room from the computer I was collecting the data for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Well, this has been a pretty geeky session, but that's kind of the idea behind the Color Matters podcast is to peel back the layers and really dive in deep. So I appreciate you guys your willingness to do that with me today, and yeah, thanks a lot for your time and your expertise.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.
Well, hope you enjoyed that episode of Color Matters from Clark Omholt. Thank you, Clark, for having us as a guest on your new podcast. We enjoyed it. We encourage you to tune into their podcast and ours as we are moving forward into 2025, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you out there somewhere this year. Like I said, we gave you a list of places to find us in 2025, and I'm sure that list will increase. But for now, we're hoping to see you all somewhere. Have a great day.